Hey, Robonzo here. In this episode, I speak with Lindsay White about her latest project, Lady Brain Fest, and the Lady Brain Collective, a community of San Diego-based female artists who support one another. We also touch on Patreon, gratitude journaling, saying no, and more. Let's do it. This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Lindsay White makes a repeat appearance on the podcast. Been doing that a lot lately, following 3 weeks of travel. It's been an attempt to make my life a little easier. Former guests have been such great friends and supporters, so they honor me with the return engagements. But the timing was good for this conversation. Lindsay and her co-conspirators of the Lady Brain Collective are putting on a cool festival on July 7th, 2019. It's happening in San Diego and features a number of female-fronted acts. It sounds very cool, looks very cool. The really interesting thing about the whole Lady Brain thing is the community they built. Lindsay explains how members of the collective are helping one another, teaching, knowledge sharing, supporting one another. It sounds really cool. Speaking of support, thank you to everyone who has supported the podcast and the Unstarving Musician Project. You are helping to make this and future Unstarving Musician things possible. I just created one place where you can learn about the growing number of ways to support the Unstarving Musician Project, and that is unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. Thank you, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, for the inspiration. Another podcaster. She doesn't know me, but I'm a total fanboy. So if you'd like to support or learn about supporting this podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. I fracking love talking to Lindsay White. She's a doll. Hope she doesn't mind me saying so. I threatened her with a gratitude entry on Instagram. Wait, what? Is that what you're thinking? What am I talking about? Threatening Lindsay with gratitude? Sounds kind of funny when I say it. I'll just say I'm inspired by Lindsay. Enjoy our conversation and learn what I'm referring to, this whole threatening thing. Here's me and Lindsay White. So there's been a lot happening since the last time we spoke. A couple of things I would like to ask you about off the top, and then we'll get into what I believe is going to be a much bigger topic for you in your life right now. But since the last time we spoke, a couple of tunes were released. I don't think either of them were out when we spoke last, but in order, The Hound, and then Let Love Lead the Way. Can you tell me a little bit about The Hound and where it comes from?
Yeah, I actually started this sort of nerdy Game of Thrones songwriting competition with my music friends who were
That's awesome.
fans of Game of Thrones, and we drew random characters to write about, and I drew the Hound, which I was pretty happy about because the Hound was one of my favorite characters. And so that's essentially where the idea came from. But of course, when I'm writing about something inspired by some other piece of literature or art, I usually find a way to wrap it back around to me because that's what songwriters do. So it's also a very personal song for me about just, coming out of the other end of trauma and really understanding that trauma doesn't have to be all bad. It can also be the thing that develops your character and your compassion for other people. And so that's essentially the gist of the song.
It's a cool song. It's got a nice groove. I love it. And then, quick question though on the Game of Thrones fandom. Two questions, actually. It just occurred to me that I don't know what you call one another, and I was like, maybe they call each other thronies. I don't know. But there's that, if there is such a thing. And then the other one is, if I were a Game of Thrones follower, would I have guessed that the Hound might be from there? The inspiration of the title?
Probably. I don't know. It's not very overt, but I think I talk about fire a lot, and that's kind of like the Hound has this whole story arc about like being burned with fire from a young age. Like his brother put his face in fire, and so he was like sort of always scared of it. So there is that like motif running through the song. So I think you could pick up on it. I have friends that don't watch Game of Thrones at all, and they still resonate with the song, which makes me happy. I have friends that have like downright told me they don't get it. And I think that's probably because they're not as into Game of Thrones. So I don't know. It's just like take from it what you can.
I didn't even have to realize that to get into the song. So there are others that don't watch it besides me. That's cool. And do you fans have a name for yourselves like I suggested, or?
Oh gosh, I'm not that into it. I am.
Oh, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere.
I loved the show, but I was like 5 years late on it. Like my wife and I binge watched it for of the first few seasons because we were just like so significantly late to the party, and then kind of caught up and finished it out with everybody else.
I think I've seen not an entire episode, but one episode, and it was actually in a visit to Costa Rica before we moved here. We were in kind of a neat place called Lake Arenal. And so to see whatever episode I saw was kind of befitting of the scenery that was around us. It was a very Lake Arenal at the time of year that we were there, which was quite possibly, I bet it was in your fall season because it was rainy season there, and it's kind of a mystical place. And then anyway, I digress. How about Let Love Lead the Way?
So that song, earlier this year, I was invited to perform at the San Diego Women's March, and I knew that I had quite a few songs up my sleeve that sort of addressed my feminist perspective on the world, especially post-Trump election, and they were just really angry, and I didn't want to get up there at this like really positive event and spout off my rage. So I decided to write a song that was more uplifting and also action-oriented in terms of what we can do to combat injustice, and also for it to just be more of a sing-along, something that people could catch on to quickly and sing along with me, because that's, pretty much going back to like what I know about the roots of folk music and protest music. It has to be simplified, so it's so accessible to everybody from kids to all the way up, So that was sort of the inspiration for that song. And then recording it and doing the music video, I tried to capture some of that spirit of a collective voice of women. And I think we achieved that pretty well.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, not knowing anything about it, I was reminded because of the, I want to say chorus, I mean to say choir type of sing-along that's happening in it. It made me think of, you can't always get what you want, but now that we're talking about it here, it makes me think more of lending itself to the spirit of a song like Give Peace a Chance.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I got a video to check out too then.
Yeah.
All right, so it seems to me that the big news and the fortuitous reason that brought us together today is Lady Brainfest. And tell me all about it. I read a little bit about it. It's very near as we're recording, so it's the 21st of June. The event happens, is it 7 July?
No, it is July 7th. Yeah, you're right. Sunday, July 7th. Yep,
Sunday, July 7th. And this episode, as it gets listened to by the masses, will actually be the weekend before. But maybe when we're done, I wanted to chat a little bit about making a sneak preview available that we can use, or you can use if you like, to kind of promote the event. But yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, so long story short, back in December, which is not really that long ago, a group of women, I sort of invited a group of women over to my house, and we were talking about, what it is to be an independent artist in San Diego, and ways we can sort of help each other and support each other, create opportunities, that sort of thing. And from that first initial casual brunch of like 10 people, it has grown into this 75 member collaborative, where we just do all kinds of things, both like for the public and also behind the scenes. So we'll do like public showcases, community gatherings, and where we feature different artists, different lineups, that sort of thing. And then we'll also do private meetups where members can gather together and take part in a workshop of some sort that maybe is on a topic that's of interest to them, some sort of educational component. And then we have sort of like a digital arm of Lady Brain Collective, which is where we share resources, booking contacts, media contacts, that sort of thing. We create press opportunities for each other. We have podcasts hosted by one of our members, Catherine Beeks, and some of our members volunteer to write reviews for other members when they have new singles and albums coming out, and that sort of thing. So Lady Brain Fest is sort of that idea pumped up like 10 notches. It's our monthly community gathering, but this one's going to be an actual festival, and we're doing it in partnership with Listen Local Radio, which is also run by Catherine Beeks, and she's just got years and years of experience putting on bigger events like this. So she's definitely taken the reins in terms of producing the event. And basically what it is, to make a long story short, as I tried in the beginning, is 20 female-fronted acts on 2 different stages.
Wow.
Continuous music, 100% female-fronted music festival, which I encourage you to Google how rare that is, but it's pretty rare. And we're just really excited to create these performance opportunities for our members, and also just to try to foster more of a sense of community for women artists here in San Diego. And we're really, really excited about it.
Cool. I had a few follow-up questions before I asked you the first one. Now I have several, but did you say Catherine B? Is that her name?
Beeks.
Beeks. How do you spell that?
Yeah. Beeks.
Tell me a little bit more about her role and who she is.
Catherine Beeks is a wonderful, wonderful human here in San Diego. She's a music promoter, host, MC, musician herself, and her main band right now is called Calamity, but she's been in several projects. I've known her really since I started dipping my toe in the music scene here many, many years ago, and she sort of set me on my way, introduced me to a ton of people, gave me my first showcases, that sort of thing. So she's been integral part of my experience here as a musician in San Diego. And she was part of that initial gathering that we had here at my house, where we were just sort of shooting ideas off each other and sharing our stories and that sort of thing. So she's become a really important member of Lady Brain Collective. And she is, like I said, hosting the podcast, and then taking the reins of producing Lady Brain Fest. So she represents the venue where Lady Brain Fest is happening, which is called Heritage Ranch. So it's at the San Diego Heritage Museum up in Encinitas. And so she's offered that venue to us. She set up all the vendors. She set up sort of the flow of everything. And so she's really wearing the boss hat for this.
That's pretty cool. Sounds like a wonderful friend.
Oh yeah, she's amazing, and it's really great to all these years later be working together and partnering on this like we are, because she was so crucial to me even knowing anybody in this town when it came to music. So I'm really grateful to her.
So you've mentioned the word members at least a couple of times. Tell me what that means in terms of Lady Brain. What is membership? What is being a member?
What is membership?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot of things. It's kind of whatever you want it to be. So if you go to ladybrainpresents.com to our contact form, there's a little section that you can fill out to sort of join up. And if you do that, then what I'll send you in return is sort of like a step-by-step process of how to get the most out of membership. So that it's not like a paid thing. You don't have to subscribe or anything like that, but it's basically just like, here are the ways that Lady Brain can hopefully provide some value toward you and your what you're trying to do creatively, because it's not just musicians. And some of those things are the things that I mentioned earlier, as well as we have a private Facebook group where people can come on and post opportunities for each other. Like maybe it can be something as small as like, does anybody have a PA system I can borrow? Or I have to cancel my gig. Does anybody want to take it? That sort of thing. So just like really helping each other out, and as opposed to seeing each other as competition, which I think, we've been socialized to do for so long. Another part of membership is we have an Instagram pod, where we help sort of organically boost each other's posts. So that's cool. We have like a Spotify playlist, basically anything you can think of, we have it. And membership, like to be a member, you don't have to necessarily partake in any of it, but it's all there available to you if you want to. So I think what I'm seeing is the people who are showing up, who are constantly contributing and looking for ways to be of service to their fellow members are getting the most out of it. So that's sort of the goal.
That makes sense. Any membership organization or being part of any membership collective they always tend to return so much more, or there's a correlation between how involved you are and how much they return. That's what I meant to say. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, of course.
What's the Spotify playlist called, by the way?
I think I don't know the exact name off the top of my head. I'd have to find it for you, but I think it's just called Lady Brain Collective. I'll find it while we're talking.
I'm looking for it too. Let's see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just called Lady Brain.
Let's see. So I see. Actually, what I got was it's called Lady Brain. Okay, so I got the podcast. So, and then what about the birth of the podcast? Catherine's involved in that, and
yeah, you have to ask Catherine about that. She's been very involved in hosting in radio shows, both terrestrial radio and her own projects, and so she just sort of raised her hand and said, "I want to put my podcast pants back on," and just started having members come on and talk about what's going on with them lately. So I think we have like about 8 episodes so far. It's really cool.
So she had clearly done some podcasting before based on that response. Okay, cool. And she still does radio. Yeah. Nice. Yeah,
she's just one of those people that has her hand in everything. She's super multi-talented.
Tell me and the listeners about the educational facet of Lady Brain and or if it's how it might be connected to the festival.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I don't know that it's connected to the festival per se, but the educational topics that we provide for members, it's sort of on a monthly basis. And what usually happens is a member will volunteer to host the meetup in their home. And so we'll take turns as far as where the location of the meetup is. And then we'll try to get either a member or maybe even a couple members to speak on a certain topic, or we can even bring in someone outside who has information that we all pretty much consider valuable. So we've done it a couple different ways. Once we had one of our members, Sharice Coulter, who's a local photographer and videographer, come in and talk to us about do-it-yourself video, how to make your videos a little bit cleaner and more professional looking, and how to do that on a budget when you don't have the money to hire a pro. So that was really valuable. We've brought in other people. We just recently brought in the president of a PR company here in San Diego called Olive Creative Strategies, and her name's Jennifer. She came in and talked to us about the best way to go about pitching yourself to the media. So those meetups have been really, I think, valuable, not only for that educational component, but just there's something about sitting in a room, making the time to actually go to a physical space and share that space with people who are going through the same kinds of things that you are. Maybe not precisely the same things, but they kind of have a feel for how overwhelming it can get and how you're just doing your best, but you may not have all the information that you need. So there's just something really uplifting about that. And in this world where it can be very isolating to be an artist, they've quickly become one of my favorite things about Lady Brain.
I would imagine. It sounds like the couple of topics that you threw out there sound immensely helpful for pretty much anyone, but for for the music artist world and artist world in general, for sure.
Right.
And then let's see here. I was planning to ask about sponsors, but it looks like you have a nice host of sponsors for the event. And I'm asking this because I'm thinking, well, this is a cool thing that others might want to try to replicate or learn from in their area. But was Catherine B., was she the big driver behind sponsors as well, or how did that come together? And how has sponsorship worked for you thus far?
Well, yeah. So for the Lady Brain Fest itself, she has organized all the vendors, all the sponsors, that sort of thing, which is helping cover the cost of the expenses of running the event. Now, as far as ticket sales and that sort of thing, we're really trying to make sure that the artists get paid. So they all have pre-sale tickets that they can sell and pocket whatever money they make off of those tickets. Our online ticket sales are set up in a way so you can select which act you want to support, and that money just goes directly to them. So, cool. So we're not really, at this point, I'm not really in it to try to, make a big pile of cash or anything like that. But moving forward, as we grow, it's so much great work and it's fun and I really love to do it. But it is a lot of work and I still have to put food on the table. So, at the same time that I'm trying to do my music career and Lady Brain and all that, I'm also trying to feed my family. So I have to have all my side hustles that we talked about last time.
Right.
So I would love, moving forward to figure out a way to have long-term engaged sponsors or investors or something that just see the value in the organization itself and somehow, maybe work together to find a way to monetize it so it can actually be my job. That would be sort of a long-term goal. But, I'm just sort of putting it out there into the world and hoping that the right people come my way and connect with me on that, because as much as I love doing this work, I'm not the business starting kind of person. I'm not the person that wants to file the paperwork and figure out the taxes and all that stuff. So I need help if I'm gonna take it to that level.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I'm sure even in your own microcosm of just your personal music career, there's a little bit of the same there, that there are the parts you really love and the other parts not so much. Yeah. I spoke to a guy on the podcast a while back, and he's an industry guy. I don't talk to a lot of those, but his name is Jason Davis, I believe. Gosh, I better look that up while we're talking about it. But he was, I got into asking him, about common, so he's an artist management guy, entrepreneur, and it's Jason Davis, and he's helped start a lot of companies. He first, he found his initial excitement in music by writing songs and having some things published, but he at a much younger age, he sort of got very enthused about helping other artists, capture their dreams. But anyway, I was asking him about trying to find out, what are some common elements of success that he's seen in artists. And a couple things he said really stood out. One was, without hesitation, he said, the ones that tend to find the most success are the ones that are willing and do get out of their comfort zone. It's kind of a broad statement, but it really makes you think, right? But the other thing he had said was, and it just, I thought of this when we were talking. When you first said, it'd be great to get more sponsors and have I'm assuming, sort of have them be regulars. But he said, people would just be amazed what just asking for support would do. And he told this great story. I hope you'll listen to it anyway. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have, I am not yet doing the transcript, so everything's timestamped, but I hope that you'll give it a listen. But he had told this great story of a female artist who had means. She had money, but she wanted to do a record which was going to cost a pretty large sum of money to do it right the way she wanted to. And he encouraged her. She didn't think she could get, crowdfund support or any kind of sponsorship because she did have money. I mean, financially, she was pretty well set. She's like, nobody's going to give me money. But anyway, he talked her into just asking, and the story unfolds in such a nice way. What ended up happening because she did ask. So, and my point that I should get back to is that as you seek to do something like make this festival a little bit bigger, and just to hone in again on the one example or the one little thing that you started with, or was at the beginning there, was maybe having more sponsors and regular people, is that just asking may surprise the heck out of you. So.
Oh man, I'm very comfortable asking. I feel like that's all I do.
Good.
for my own music stuff, I have the Patreon and all that stuff, and that's been wonderful in terms of supplementing some income for my own personal creative projects. It kind of gets to a point though where you only have so much bandwidth, like I think that's the issue I run into, is like trying to keep all these plates spinning. At some point, I have to, and I do try to take advantage of even opportunities like this, podcast and media hits where I get to come on and talk about what I'm doing. And I'm really, what I'm doing, I feel like is throwing up my bat signal and saying like, here's what I'm doing. If you want to be a part of this, like come be a part of it, however you can, whether it's financial or volunteer or joining as a member or just being a friend, anything really. I mean, that's what these opportunities are all about for me, is just like trying to reach people who are like-minded and kind of on the same journey.
Yeah. Tell me about, it may be a real quick answer, but about performer selection for the festival. I'm guessing that the answer has a lot to do with members, but was there anything noteworthy that went into finding the right people to perform?
Actually, we started planning this so many months ago, and so early on into our collective even existing, that we didn't even have as many members at that time. And it was just sort of like hey, this is the date we're going to do it. Who's interested in playing? And we took the people that were interested, and we tried to arrange the lineup in a way that sort of made sense, and got as many acts as we could on the bill. By the way that we've set up the lineup is there's one stage that's a full band stage, and then the second stage is songwriters in the round, 2 at a time. So we're able to have more acts on the bill that way, because they're doing song swaps essentially for their set. So we're able to get even more acts on the lineup that way. I think as we grow, we're obviously going to have to figure out a new method that is still fair and accounts for everybody who wants to be a part of it. But yeah, we would like to keep that within the membership.
That's pretty cool. What would you say has been, and I don't know how big the challenges have been in this particular department compared to others, but with developing a lineup that you feel serves the community, the members, and makes sense, what were the biggest challenges, or maybe things that you will take to the next event, having learned from this one, where it comes to putting the performing lineup together?
Well, I mean, I guess I got to see how the first one goes first, and then see what I learn. We'll see how this format works out, and if it's successful. There's not a traditional headliner in the sense that other festivals have headliners. I mean, we tried to make a good flow into the evening, but yeah, everybody. This isn't about that. This is just about showing up and supporting the people that you care about. So it's like. We want to continue that, obviously, as we go into the future. future festivals. And something that is a goal of mine is just to always be cognizant of intersectionality, inclusivity, that sort of thing. I really love how we have lots of different genres, lots of different ages, lots of different cultures and backgrounds, and just styles of music. We have queer performers, straight performers, and the more the merrier in that sense. I just really want to make sure that we're representing what San Diego truly has to offer. And if that means going out and finding things that I didn't know existed, then, that's what I'm committed to doing.
That's very cool. A nice way to approach it, and I imagine it will evolve over time. I love the names of the stages. I don't know if it's changed, but I see you've got a lady stage and a brain stage. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And I sadly only recognize one artist, but the upside of that, well, two, including you, the upside of that is that I have all these great artists to explore now. Maybe I can get some on the podcast, but I have to mention one. Maybe you can say hi on my behalf, and I need to reach out again. Is Chris Aveda? She and I, after a little chasing her down, had a mishap on all my fault on our scheduled time for the podcast, and we have never rescheduled. And of course, I'm with the podcast. I'm in a bit of a silo, and so I've got all these things going on in my head. It's like, oh man, even though she was really nice, she's probably like, screw that guy. He wasted my time. She was so mellow about it on the phone, and just really sweet. Yeah. And I suspect maybe just we haven't come back together, but I hope that she recognizes that. I'm very, I'm going to ping her after we're done, but that I'm very serious in wanting to have her back on again. So
yeah, she just put out a new single, actually. So now would be a good time to catch her. She's wonderful. I love her.
She seems pretty lovable. In the very brief time I had to apologize to her when I called her, I think it's been quite a while now, but it was a Saturday morning. Since then, I've said all podcast interviews are going to be on Fridays, which has greatly improved my life. I kind of batch it all together, and it's very predictable. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was letting them be on many different days, and including Saturday mornings, which caught me by surprise more than once. But that particular one, if memory serves me right, she probably pinged me. Was like, "Are we going to? Did I get the time wrong?" And I'm so mortified. Anyway. I digress again, but I will definitely ping her. So you mentioned Patreon, and I don't know if we talked about this last time, and I wanted to bring it up. I know that a lot of people think about dipping their toes into Patreon before they ever do, if they ever do, as I have done at the encouragement of a lot of friends. But I want to ask you for your best advice on keeping that going in terms of, building the things that we should be building for our supporters and that whole community that starts to evolve. And specifically, I'm talking about the content and the ideas and the things to share. What's your best advice to a super newbie and to others?
I don't know. I think people go about the whole crowdfunding thing and Patreon thing so vastly differently depending on what their goals are. For me, it's never been something that I don't want to make a whole other business out of trying to get my Patreon going, because I just don't have the capacity for it. I wish I had more time to put it out there and try to grow it to the level that would help me actually be able to earn a living. But unfortunately, I just am too busy doing other shit. So it's something that I put out there, and the way that I do it is I sort of, I'll post regular content onto my public social media channels, and then I'll just sort of point out the fact that there's even more exclusive content in my Patreon group. So I use like a private Facebook group for most of my Patreon content. And what I'll post there is, just videos where I'm checking in and sort of getting real about what this life is actually like, in a way that I don't necessarily do on my public social media channels. Let's say on Instagram or Facebook, on my public channel, I'll post one song from a show, but on my Patreon group, I might post the whole concert, or I might post an entire band practice, just so you can get more of a look at what this life is really like, from all angles, not just like the bright, shiny, fancy stuff that we post all the time on social media. And a lot of that, honestly, is me struggling and knowing that it's safe to struggle there. And I don't know that maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. Maybe some business people would tell you, like, don't get that deep with your supporters. They don't want to see sad shit all the time. But I don't know. I just know that these are people that care enough about what I'm doing that they actually would give me even $1 out of their bank account every month. And to me, that is just so, I don't even know like how to express how grateful I am for that, other than to just be like, okay, well, you're vouching for me, so I'm going to trust that it's okay to be my 100% complete self in front of you. And that's just the way that I've done it. And, you know, it hasn't been growing off the charts or anything, but the people who are a part of it, I know, are my people and really care about me and don't make this whole journey as a solo artist feel so lonely. So that's really what it is for me. I know that other people spend a lot of time making, you know, fancy videos and putting out all kinds of cool merch for their exclusive Patreon supporters. And that's great. I wish I had the time to do it, but I'm just trying to feed my family. So
yeah, I understand. I totally
if people
get that.
Want to get down with what I'm doing and they want to be along for the ride, like, I'm so grateful to them, but that's pretty much about as far as I take it.
I totally get that. And thanks for sharing what you did. A few minutes ago, you said something that made me think, and Patreon, and you had mentioned Patreon too, and just how busy you were. And I was like, and Patreon. I'm thinking in my head, and Patreon can be a whole other business if you're not careful because of the things that you may feel obligated to create. But I've gotten.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, like, I know tons of people who have really found that to be the thing that has helped them like earn a real living as an artist, and they're doing it in such wonderful ways. And I'm sure I have a ton to learn from them about how they make it work for them. So I'm grateful that it exists because, you know, it's one of the few ways that we have as independent artists, to find people who still value what we do. Cause to be honest, we're sort of given the short end of the stick at every turn, whether it be digital streaming services and the, you know, shit royalties we get paid there versus to, you know, venues that say we don't pay, but you can put out a tip jar. So it's just like at every turn we're faced with basically people telling us we don't value what you do enough. We want what you do, but we don't want to pay you for it. So to be able to find those people who say, we know that we can get this for free, but we want to help, that is just incredible in this day and age to find those people.
Yeah. You know, and I tend to give, I'll just use the example of venues, but I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's, you know, it's tough for them to run their business too. However, you know, if you look around hard enough, you can see the ones that appear to go out of their way to help lift artists by making sure they get paid. Again, just sort of talking about venues as an example. But, you know, it would, I guess, having the conversation in an honest way conversations between artists and venues, again, just as an example to find out where everyone's at would be helpful. We tend to make a lot of assumptions on both sides, I think, but and often maybe quite right. I imagine that you're...
Well, the way that I always kind of look at it is like a business wouldn't be able to get away with that for like if they had to hire a plumber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's same with any business, really. It's like if you're hiring a service, somebody to come provide a service for you, you would never expect any other type of service person to come into your business, make your business better, and then tell them you couldn't pay them. Like, you would get sued. Mm-hmm. So it's I understand that it's kind of different for the arts because musicians, there's so many of us out there, and we're at such different stages in our careers that some of us are really willing to just get that opportunity to play, to get your feet wet. And maybe the money is not that important, but for those of us that are trying to do it professionally, it's hard to come in and hear that time and time again. Like, we want you to come in and play for us, but we don't have the money to pay you. It's kind of, you wouldn't say that to the person who provided you your cups and your straws,
Yep. Yeah. And I imagine that a lot of musicians, we don't always value our ourselves and our art enough, and we're willing,
Totally.
we unfortunately make the decision sometimes to provide it for free. And,
oh yeah,
I understand there are times when that may make sense. Most of the time, not so much. And I'm always amused by I don't really do this, for the money. I really, yeah. But doesn't the money make it much nicer no matter where you're at?
Well, I mean, we have to just make that choice on a case-by-case basis every time,
Mm-hmm. It's true. Well, I like your analogy, though. That's pretty good. Pretty good. So what else has been happening since the last time we spoke?
Oh, man. I don't know. Just that's not enough for you? No.
When's the next album coming out?
Actually, I'm just starting to get my feet wet in the whole self-recording realm. My friend Joel Stewart, who is also my drummer, she's also Chris Avetta's drummer too. We share a drummer.
What's her name?
She and I have been determined to figure out self-recording, and I've been sort of going into her studio whenever I get the chance, and trying to lay down some songs. Nothing has really materialized into a full project yet, but we're just kind of learning the basics, and I don't need a whole lot in terms of production, because what I do is more lyric driven than anything else anyway. So it's if I can get a good vocal take, and then make a pretty bed of music for the lyrics to lie in, that's really all I need. So we're figuring that out. We actually just did a session a few days ago, and it went pretty well. Is
it you and your drummer that you're saying are determined to figure it out, or you and Chris Aveda? Or all three of you?
Me and my drummer.
And did you say your shared drummer's name is Joel Stewart?
Yep, Joel Stewart.
Well, I got it right. Do you think about, I'm on a similar journey, albeit I've been sort of sitting on it until recently, but I had decided some time ago that I really wanted to work on setting up a home studio so that I can record some drums, maybe some guitar and vocals, and put some things out, like for instance on Instagram, and share with others, and could do the same on Patreon too, certain things. But have you, in your studio efforts, have you had any thoughts or conversation, you and Jewel, about making it conducive to doing videos for your community as well?
Not really. I think right now we're just sort of more focused on the audio aspect.
Sure.
And once we feel more confident in that, I think maybe we can go there to video. But I have sort of a little setup here in my house that sometimes if I write a song, I'll do a cute little video with lyrics, since again, lyrics is sort of my thing that I love so much, and I'll put that up on YouTube. I'm definitely not a pro at that either, and I have a lot to learn, but I'm trying.
Yeah, well, I can put stuff up on YouTube. It's just putting the stuff together that's the big thing for me. You know what? I'm having so much fun here, I forgot that I need to take a quick break. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, okay? You are listening to my conversation with Lindsay White, and you are about to hear a clip from her somewhat recent track called The Hound. Enjoy. what do you do to keep creativity going these days? I remember that last time we talked, I think you mentioned some songwriting things that you did for songwriting, or maybe we were talking about someone else's songwriting book clubs or something. But what do you do personally these days to stay creative, or is that like not even a thing? You're usually just like can't write enough?
Well, lately I've just been so busy that it's been hard to find the time to sit down and do pretty much anything for myself. So,
is it the festival?
And just because of the collective and trying to string an income together and all that stuff. So sometimes my own creative projects take a back seat, and I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to make it myself a priority. But I'm working on it. It's a process, but, creatively speaking, songwriting wise, normally I would say like a songwriting idea just sort of keeps poking me until I actually will sit down and be like, okay, fine, let me get this out of my brain, because I'll have just like maybe a funny observation about life, or like a certain thought about a phrase or something, or melody. And I'll be, just singing in the shower while I'm folding laundry or whatever I'm doing, as I move about my busy life. And finally it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, like I'll do it because I can't stop thinking about it until I do it. It's like scratching an itch, So I recently just had that happen to me with the latest song that I just wrote, and I was actually ended up being really happy about it. So I was glad, because sometimes if I wait too long, it goes away, and then I'm kicking myself for not, listening to the source or the muse or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, what are your plans, or what are you thinking you're going to do to resituate yourself to not feel so busy and have a little more time for creativity or for taking care of Lindsay White?
I think one thing that I've tried to start putting into practice, my friend Jules and I that I mentioned earlier, we have this game that we're trying to play where we get points for saying no, because what happens is I like whip myself into this crazy pile of work just by saying yes to everything, either because I really want to do it, or I really want to help out, or because I really need the money and I'm scared that if I say no, I'll lose the opportunity to make money. But it'll get to the point where I just sort of whip myself into this like anxious, bad place where I can't even think straight because there's so much on my plate, and none of it has to do with anything that I'm actually trying to do for my own heart and soul. So I'm really trying to actively say no to things. Even if they sound good, even if I want to do them, I have to kind of like balance it out with the rest of my schedule and like look at what's going on in my life and be like, is there really any way that this realistically fits? And if the answer is no, I have to turn it down, and just trust that whoever's trying to work with me will understand that, and hopefully be able to work with me sometime in the future when I'm not so slammed. So just really trying to carve out harder boundaries for myself. And then hopefully if I do that enough, then I'll have a little bit of spare time to work on all the things that I want to do. Cause it's not just music. I'm trying to write a book. I'm trying to learn how to record, all these things that just sort of get pushed to the back. Just because there's only so much time in the day,
Yeah. Outside of money and fear of missing out, are there other reasons that you think you struggle to say no? And I can relate, by the way, and I know a lot of people listening to this can too.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question. That I started what?
Are there, so outside of money and fear of missing out, because I heard you mention those, you didn't say FOMO, but I kind of picked it up. But
FOMO.
Yeah, but are there other reasons that you think that you have difficulty saying no?
I just like to help people. I'm definitely a people pleaser, and if a project sounds interesting, I want to be a part of it. So that is, I stretch myself too thin, and then I end up worrying that I'm not going to do my best work because I'm just trying to keep my head above water, So I don't ever want to say no.
Well, that's an easy one to fix.
Yeah.
You just have to remember that old adage, which is very true, that you can't help others till you help yourself, Lindsay.
Exactly. I know. I've spent a lot of money in therapy learning that one, but it's like you have to like relearn it all the time.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I was sitting here thinking thinking that, I guess for maybe one tactic when someone's in the vicious cycle of saying yes too often, to just say, okay, everything is no for the next whatever month. And with any luck, if I change my mind, I can go back and take it back and say yes if it was really that important. But say no and give myself, 48 hours to think about if that was the right decision and just take in how it feels. But I don't know if that works. Right. I've never really tried it. I just, the big things I've picked up on in recent or many months past are the easier ways to say no. And one of the ones that jumps out for me is I can't, but I'd love to support you in some other way. So if there is another way, tell me. And that seems to be one of the good things. And then, I've seen a couple of emails from others about, on that are basically saying no and doing it in a very classy, tactful, appreciative way that makes it a little easier. Sometimes those are hard things for us. Do you, I'm going to switch gears, but do you still gratitude journal?
I have been so busy lately that I just sort of fall into my bed at night in like a puddle of mush. So I haven't been, and I'm sad to say that because I love doing it so much, and I will still do it like in my head. I think I've ingrained the practice in my actual brain enough to where I still will kind of like list the things I'm thankful for in my head at night, but I haven't been as good about writing them down and posting them, which I really want to get better at. And I think, again, that goes back to like finding time for myself, because it's just like I'm so spent by the end of the day that I don't even have the time for myself to list that out or to, grab my journal and write it down. But I think maybe I need to change the time of the day that I do it. Like maybe I need to do it right when I wake up, when I have a little bit more energy. Yeah,
that's worth trying. It was you, right? That at one time you were doing it on Instagram, like daily or weekly or something, and then one day I think you'd inspired me, and I put something, maybe put something on Instagram or on Facebook and mentioned you. Was that us? Was that you?
Yeah. That's why I really like to do it. That's why I like to actually go that extra step and post it, because I've had so many people that are like, you know what, I started doing that too, and it feels really good. So it's like a cool little ripple effect that can happen. But I got to get back at it.
It's an amazing, wonderful memory of that one little time that I did it. And I've probably done a little bit of gratitude journaling since. It's not not for any long periods of time been a regular practice for me. I'm waving my hand like writing, pretending like I'm writing in the air. It's kind of funny, but it's not been a regular practice for me for any length of time. But what a beautiful memory of seeing all those ones that you did. I can kind of remember just looking at Instagram at these photos or posts and posts and posts, it seemed like, of these different gratitude postings that you'd done. And I don't even remember what I wrote. I'll have to go look for that. But I'm inspired. I may post something up and tag you or something, and maybe we can get something going again. What do you think you're going to write a book about?
Oh, I'm already in the process. I guess I should have mentioned when you were asking me about Patreon content. So for one of my levels of patronage, for people who donate $25 and more, I post a chapter of my book that I'm writing every month. And it's actually about my experience with anxiety and sort of like a memoir style of really pinpointing when I started to actually experience anxiety as a young girl, and then all the experiences that I had leading up to actually getting diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and then everything that sort of happened since, learning how to manage the symptoms, learning how to try to take care of myself through those experiences. So that's sort of the goal. I'm only on like chapter 3 right now, but that's one of those things that I'm talking about, that it gets pushed to the back. And I did it as part of my Patreon because I wanted to hold myself accountable, because if I had other people to show up for and deliver to, that it would hopefully make me not push it to the back as much. So I'm still struggling to carve out that boundary too. But that's the goal, is to finish that book, hopefully within the next couple years.
I love it. Even though it's just another damn source of anxiety. I'm just kidding. I love that. I really love that. And I'm reminded that we talked a little bit about your lifelong anxiety on the last episode. So those of you that are listening, you should check out Lindsay's first appearance here on the podcast. You can just search for Lindsay White, and let's see. Let's mention a couple things before I thank you and send you on your way. But LindsyWhiteMusic.com looks like the best place to find out about everything Lindsay White related. And I don't know if it's the traditional spelling or not, but we're going to call it the traditional spelling, LINDSAY. Just say LindsyWhiteMusic.com. And love the new pic on there. I don't think that was there last time. Looking pretty good. Thanks. Sassy in your beanbag chair and your red boots. It's really nice.
My sister took that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Well, man, thanks for, Lindsay, thanks for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the luck in the world with you and your other gal pals with the Lady Brain Fest and the collective. It sounds like you're doing wonderful, wonderful things for your local community. And I hope that others will be inspired to learn about it and maybe check out the festival and perhaps shoot you some messages to bounce some ideas off of you.
Yeah.
Spend some more of that, unlimited time that you have talking to people.
No, I really appreciate it. And I always have a good time when I talk to you. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. We'll stay in touch and I'll talk to you again soon. That is a wrap. Another episode, another fun conversation for me. I hope you had fun too. It feels like I spoke to a future festival promoter, like a big-time festival promoter, making her living, making other artists and their fans happy, fulfilling her dream, Lindsay. I can feel it. I can see it. You feeling it too? Are you happy with your artist website, your band website? I was, but it's become a tangled mess with the Unstarving Musician website, which I'm pretty happy with. Not the tangled mess, but the Unstarving Musician website. You know what I'm working on, though? A new artist website powered by Bandzoogle. I've done the tour, I got an account, and I've seen what you can do with it. I've seen what other artists have done with it. Bandzoogle, they power websites for thousands of artists, from garage bands to Grammy winners. They have a simple step-by-step system that'll get you online fast, lots of mobile-friendly templates. It was built for musicians by musicians, and it's got a ton of great features, including merch and download store to sell merch, commission-free on your website, a tour calendar functionality to promote your shows, mailing list tools, that's a big one. It integrates with all your socials, and another big one, live support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. So just go to bandzoogle.com to check it out and to start your 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code Robonzo to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code Robonzo, ROBONZO, to build your artist website today. Look for links to just about everything talked about in this episode in the episode show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks again so much for listening. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.